Well, before we hit record, my partner said, technology is designed to make our lives easier. And here we were thinking we were all that in a bag of chips last week with all this nice
Great new
equipment.
equipment. Yeah.
And we teased at the end of the last episode that we were having a guest on today. And for the past, I don't know, hour and a half, we were trying to figure out the audio, the video, whole thing was just a complete gong show. And now we just decided that we're going to do a podcast, just David and I, because it wasn't working. And so hopefully next week we'll have a guest for you guys. And
a really good guest.
A really good one.
Really good guest.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that we were talking about in terms of leadership and system creation and implementation and just putting yourself in a position to step outside of your business so it can run without you. So in the meantime, go to mikedejeong.com. That's MikeDejeong.com, where you can download a copy of his book, Grow Smart, Your Path to Freedom, Master the Transition from Operator to Owner. And one of the things that came up in our conversation with Mike before the internet decided to just completely take a dump on us was culture. And we were talking about culture. And so then with the time that we have left before David has to go get his line wet and do some fishing, rip some lips with his grandsons, that's what we're going to talk about today. So we've talked a lot about bad culture. And one of the biggest symptoms of bad culture being micromanagement. What is good culture? How does a franchisee or a leader in general build a good culture?
So great question. I think the three pillars that we've really been talking about a lot is leadership, culture, micromanaging. And culture and leadership, all three interact together, right? And I think that that culture to me is trust. I trust my leaders. Period. You have to trust your leaders, and trust means letting go so you can grow. Let go so you can grow. And I found that the more trust, obviously there's outliers in this. The more trust that I placed in someone, a leader, the more they rose to the occasion, even above and beyond what I expected. Really, you did that? Wow, and trust breeds culture.
And so then what do you do, or how do you instill trust to give that person the autonomy and to give them the reins without over trusting? Because I think that's that's the
right.
Get that. Stop hitting that with your thing.
Oh,
yeah, we're picking it. If you, because that's the dichotomy of micromanagement is over trust.
So trust with guardrails. Here are the guardrails. Here are the guidelines. Here's the SOPs. Here's the operating manual. Here's the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even, here's the KPIs for you. Have at it.
I think the only way that works, though, and this is something that, again, I think we can touch base on, the only way that works is if there is high accountability.
Oh, yeah.
And so what do you do if there's not accountability? Then you have to micromanage.
Well, I think one of the areas that a lot of franchisees fall down on, especially with leaders, with managers, district managers, senior district managers, however, is the training side of it. the developing side of it. One of the things that we did, and you know this, is that, okay, you're going to take over store X, but you're going to go spend a week with this manager, then you're going to go spend a week, with that person. You and I are going to have a little bit mentor-mentee relationship for a while. I mean, and
I think that's the key word.
Yeah.
I don't like the word training as much
as much as
mentoring.
Yeah.
Because training to me is way too X's and O's focused.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and where the mentoring piece of it is really where the money is made, if I may be so bold, because the mentoring side is leaning more into your axiom, David, about this industry, about its 90% attitude, 10% skill. So if we're focusing all on the 10%, then we're missing the other 90%. And that's how leaders are formed. That's where the culture really comes in, because what I was talking to a gym owner today, whether it's gym owning or franchising and QSR, if you have a good attitude, you're going to kill it. Like if you have an adult fitness population, or you're working with middle school girls soccer players, I would be willing to bet that the majority of the time, you need to have your trainers and your staff just have a freaking amazing attitude. Does it really matter how great your training program is? No, not really. But if you're adults, like if you're moms and your middle school girl soccer players or whatever the case may be, they're leaving sweating and smiling, they're coming back.
Right.
And it's no different than with our guests. Does an Italian BMT need to weigh exactly 9.2 ounces on a 6-inch? No. Now. That with an asterisk, obviously, I'm not saying that we just throw cost of goods to the wind, right?
Yeah.
But I am saying if they like the person who's serving them and the person who's making the food, they're coming back,
right? And I mean, one of the things, my axiom, and I preach this all the time. I've talked about it on every single podcast. The most important person in the store to me is the manager.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to develop culture. And I can remember many times you and I sitting down, and I said to you, we're not going to talk about the business, Hunter.
Yeah, you and I are not going to talk about how to make sandwiches. Right. You and I are going to talk about.
We're just going to talk. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about, your people and that kind of thing. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how many pieces of pepperoni go on a sandwich.
No, because those things, yeah.
Those are SOPs. Those are written down. You can find those anywhere.
Exactly. And I think we spend way too much time on that piece of it where, and again, there's such a narrow gate that you have to walk with that, or walk through, because again, I don't want people to say that we're just throwing the X's and O's to the wind.
Oh no, SOPs are very important. You have to have policies and procedures.
It's like, well, if this doesn't matter, then then a beefy filer doesn't need to weigh 8 ounces, right? If that's not the thing, well, then we can just make it weigh 6 or make it weigh 16 ounces and say to hell with it, because that's what I heard these two guys say in this podcast. So no, it's not what we're saying.
SOPs are what SOPs are accountability.
Right. But what we're talking about is the leadership aspect of it, and those are the things that come with mentoring, not necessarily training.
Right.
So then maybe that's where we need to have this discussion go more towards. And I'm not trying to derail you, David. I just think this is because there is a difference, but I don't think people know how to articulate it. What's the difference? I'm going to set you up now. What's the difference between mentoring and training?
So I would let's say we identified someone that's going to take over a store. And I'd say, you're going to go to another store, and I want you to work there for a week. And then afterwards, we have a conversation. And I don't talk a lot in those conversations about, what did those employees do right? What did those employees do wrong? I want to know more about, hey, what was your thought about her management style, her leadership style? What did you pick up that you really liked about her leadership style that you want to maybe incorporate it in your store?
Yeah.
I wasn't asking, how were they making sandwiches to formula? I wanted to know what you gleaned from that person's management style.
Yeah. I've never been a big.
How did the store feel to you? How did it feel? How did it, and by feel, I mean, was it 78 degrees or 20? How did culture feel to you?
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I think that there's a lot of nuance, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in this industry and perhaps other industries as well, because culture isn't necessarily something that you can that comes in a FAF kit, or that
No.
comes in, that's Subway nomenclature, by the way, or that comes in a new experience, which is Taco Bell
Right.
nomenclature. It's something that's observed.
So
You got to observe it. And so what do I mean by that? So like one thing that I am working with somebody that I think could supplant me at the location that I'm at right now is whenever I see him do something, I just will tell him culture champion.
yeah.
That was a culture champion move right there. And so what are some of those things? I don't know. I mean, it seems like something that's just been so lost, at least in both of the concepts that I've been in. Feel free to agree or disagree with this. Recognition at the team member level, right? Recognition at the team member level. I think recognition starts at the restaurant manager level and then goes up from there. But how are we giving recognition at the team member level, right? So one thing that we love to do at either location that I've been at is, I mean, you saw those hoodies.
You dance, yeah, you do your hoodies.
Yeah. So yeah, and using technology, kind of not satirical, like we started off this episode with. But I mean, there was one day yesterday where we were having a great time. Everybody was having fun, and one of my shift leads, his name is Jared. He's going to be a bright star, and no matter where he goes, we were having some fun, and so I just went over and I just threw a 6-inch tort on the grill. How much does a 6-inch tortilla cost? Pennies? I don't know, like literally nothing. And I just heated up 5 seconds each side, and he was busy doing something, and then I just stand right next to him, and I say, Jared, and then he turns right around, and I just slap him across the face with a tortilla.
Yeah.
He starts bawling, laughing. Everybody is just dying. And then so what I did, I turned right around and I looked up that timestamp on the cameras, and then I posted it in our team chat. Yeah. And everybody's just dying laughing, giving the rolling laughing emojis and things like that. That's what I'm talking about when it comes, like, that's culture.
Yeah, you got to find the balance. What do I say?
Between a circus and a morgue, right? But I mean, that's culture where when you're not making work feel like work, like forced fun, corporate outings, like
if you don't
mandatory pizza parties, like though that's not it's got to be organic. It can't be forced.
There's two things I think about culture. One, if you don't define culture, it'll define itself and you won't like it. Two,
wisdom there.
The biggest thing to me, we talk a lot about delegation, authority, responsibility, those kind of things. Culture to me is probably the number one thing that you as a franchisee cannot ever delegate. You as the franchisee, your number one role is responsibility for the culture of your organization. You as an RGM, a restaurant manager, your number one role is responsibility for the culture of your store. Do not delegate culture.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, your eyes as a franchisee should always be on what's the culture of my store. What's the feeling like in my store for an employee? Do my employees feel micromanaged? If they do, I'm doing something wrong. The culture drives success. If you're, and I think culture can be measurable. I think some people think culture is this, esoteric pie in the sky kind of thing. I think a good measure, a good KPI.
Yeah. How do you measure culture?
Retention. I think retention is a great measurement of culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think return rate is a great measurement of culture.
When you say return rate,
I return rate with the customer, but also return rate with the employee. What's your churn rate? How many, you and I have talked about this, and you've experienced this, that the grass is always greener. So Joe Blow's leaving your store because he can make 20 cents more an hour down the street at Burger King.
That was always the biggest thing. That was always the biggest battle with Subway employees, is because they could start at 16 somewhere else.
But I want to know how many of those people then call me on the phone and say, it's not as great as I thought it was, that 20 cents an hour. Can I come back? And I've had quite a few of those. Quite a few. Or, so it is measured. I think culture is measurable. It's measurable by retention rate. It's measurable by return rate. It's measurable by referrals. Hey, I'm constantly having.
Oh, yeah. There were times when.
Hey, will you hire my brother? Hey, will you hire my sister? Hey, I know I have a friend. Can they come and work here? And in the job market that we're in, that friend could go work anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a great place to work. I want them to come work here.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of excites me, and I know some franchisees were bothered by it, they thought it was an interruption, is the employees that wanted their family to come in and see them at work. I like my job so much. Hey, mom, dad, brother, sister, come in and visit me.
Yeah.
Without it being an interruption. Don't come in and visit me and sit there in the dining room and talk for 3 hours and blah, 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 blah. But, come in, get a sandwich. Those little things measure culture.
Yeah. Bring in your family. When an employee brings their family into the location, that is more so the definition of culture than having the core value of family.
Right.
In the business.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Having I would actually venture to say that having a core value of family being actually the antithesis of what good culture would be. Because that can be a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Family, I prefer
that can be a wolf in sheep's clothing.
And we've talked about this before. I prefer we have a great team culture versus we have a great family culture, because some people have shitty families and some people have bad family lives. And so if I equate my culture as being, we have a great family culture, and you come from a bad family culture, that's automatically a turnoff. But if I say we are a great cohesive team, we work well together, we respect each other, that says something more, than family to me, right?
Yes, I would. Yeah,
I mean,
because you hit on the concept in my book, like as far as default goes. Like if somebody's default of family is roller coaster toxicity and manipulation and all of these other things, they come into a workplace where one of our core values here is family. Well, then you're already starting on your back foot with that person. Now, other way, let's say somebody doesn't have has a good idea what family is, or they had a more quote unquote traditional upbringing,
or they have a great family.
Yeah. So then they come into that organization and they think, or they hear that they've got a family as one of their core values. Then it can get used against them, where, hey, your shift. I know your shift was, or hey, I'm trying to articulate it because I'm thinking of other examples here. Well, we're not sure if we want to promote this person because we're not really sure if they embody our core value of family. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, when their shift is over, sometimes they just clock out and go home. Well, isn't that what they're supposed to do?
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean when I say that a core value of family could actually be really damaging and the antithesis of culture there. other ways that we can, I mean, you hit the nail right in the head, I think. How do you measure culture? Retention.
Yeah,
That's huge.
I think retention,
That's
but and you know, I'm not as a big of proponent of the formal exit interview, but I kind of want to know why you're leaving. And if you say, "Hey, I'm leaving because we're moving," "Hey, I'm leaving because I'm getting married," "Hey, if you're leaving because of something that's outside of my control, as being the guru of culture, my chief responsibility as a franchisee is culture, right? Because from culture, everything flows, profits flow, speed, everything flows out of culture, right?
mm-hmm.
I kind of want to know why people leave. Yeah, I'm not going to necessarily sit down and do a formal exit interview, but I can find out in a conversation. I'm leaving because I hate working here.
Yeah, I want to dive in more into that nuance, David, of yours between a circus and a morgue, because
Yeah,
I do think some people leave for all of the right reasons. Even though and it's not necessary, and it's but you can leave for the right reasons, and your reasons might be indifferent of what a good culture actually is. So what do I mean by that?
yeah.
Somebody might be leaving because other people aren't taking the job as seriously
Right.
as them. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, what we do is tacos and burritos or sandwiches and things like that. So it's like, because I've seen people leave. Where I've seen really great people leave because they don't think that everybody else is taking the job as seriously as they are, and it's
Mhm.
just and it sucks because you lose a really good X's and O's person, but at the same time they're kind of robotic
Right.
from that standpoint,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and I think that there are people that leave, people leave because they don't want to be held accountable. Um, people, but culture is, you as the leader of your organization, you define what the culture is.
Mm-hmm.
So my definition of what a great culture looks like may be a little different than what your definition of what a great culture looks like.
Yeah.
Balance of the circus and the morgue. I can't have people throwing meats and having it sticking to the ceiling. And
Oh no, absolutely not.
I look up there and there's that's $100 sticking on the ceiling.
Right.
You know, or just willy nilly doing whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
So there are the guardrails, the accountability side, but that accountability has to apply to everybody. And I think like you said, some people leave because accountability isn't being applied to everybody.
No, what I said was
Okay.
some people leave because other people aren't taking some people leave because they take the job too seriously.
Oh, sure.
Because they take the job too
Right.
seriously. And which is why, and I think that buttresses the point that I was making before about mentorship is got to be, or maybe culture, maybe both, is got to be observed. Yeah, I'm not so sure that
Caught, not taught.
yeah, caught, not taught,
Mhm.
because it's, yeah, it's like, okay, like,
But yeah,
I'm not trying to diminish the job. I'm not trying to diminish it, but again, it's a dichotomy. Like if you're taking the job too seriously, well, then work's gonna feel like work for
yeah,
everybody. For everybody else.
you want your people to enjoy. I was going to say have fun, but fun is kind of relative, right? You want your people to enjoy coming to work and being at work. Yeah, there are going to be the struggles, there are going to be the hills and the valleys, but overall, I like coming here. I like my buddies that I work with. We all get along. I know that if I'm scheduled with Hunter, stuff's going to get done. We're going to get the job done. So that's part of culture to me. So that's but I don't want to push, I don't want the manager to push that so far that enjoyment in coming to work is just us. Well, we both experience, just us smoking a blunt in the back room, right?
Yeah, I walked in a store where that
Yeah,
was happening.
that's that. Then we're turning into a circus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I also don't want you dread coming to work because it's like it's drudgery.
Yeah.
That's the morgue,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you as the manager are responsible for the culture of the store, and I always said that, that I said you as the manager need to find that balance between a circus and a morgue.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity there in terms of. I mean, I don't know if there's a book that needs to be written about it or what in terms of from the culture standpoint, because that there's just
So yeah,
there could be because there might be a. I'm not sure if it's narrow or as wide as a canyon between getting thing. What were we just talking about in terms of taking the jobs too seriously, and well, like you said, just circus and a morgue. So
we're making sandwiches. We're not operating on brains.
Yeah, I mean, when people get really stressed out, sometimes like there was one night where it was me and one of my best food champions. I took a risk. I thought, well, we're gonna be short staffed. It's me and this other guy, arguably the two fastest people in the store. Let's do it. And we just got killed. And then I just looked at him and I said, well, we're going to have one heck of a story.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
do you remember the Friday night where we just, I mean, because there was one time when in that same rush, and we did like back to back $900 hours. I mean, we're just getting obliterated. The times are 10 minutes per car. And rather than just getting pissed, right? It's just like, hey, we're going to have one heck of a story. But I think other people, if they're taking the job too seriously, and I've seen it, they'll, walk out,
right,
or get pissed,
right,
and then just like the whole,
and then everything falls apart.
And again, this is not limited to just QSR. I mean, one of the most successful gym owners that I know, when I was in that space, it's like when we went down to his gym for a get together in Alabama, were some of his elite high school athletes doing things exactly perfectly? Like, were they doing a back squat exactly perfectly? No. But then they don't need to, right? Like, because they're leaving sweating and they're leaving smiling,
right,
and
they're not going to physically harm their body.
No,
right.
Yeah, it's yeah. So I think we place too much of a premium on the product, whatever the case is. It, like, I've said this to you before. I say it to the people that I mentor and pour into. If you can get the people that work under you 80% as good as you, you're killing it.
Yeah,
you're killing it. So then that begs the question: what is acceptable at that point? Because if 80% is killing it, then what's acceptable, right? Probably way less than we're pulling our hair out over, right?
But yeah, you need all types of people though in your organization, especially in the store, right? I have people that have we had people that had phenomenal customer service, right? But they hated washing dishes. And then we had people that loved to be in the back room washing dishes because they didn't want to wait on a customer, right? You need both.
And it's a lot of Jim Collins coming in there, putting the right people in the right seats.
Exactly.
But then also
at the right time too. I'm not going to schedule, if I'm the manager, it's probably not wise of me to schedule two people that love customer service, but hate being in the back room washing dishes.
Yeah, but then again, that's where the mentorship piece is so important, because you're right, but then also you have to be able to supercharge that mentor with those softer skills to just be able to have the conversation with the individuals. Hey, I understand that you typically like being in the back and not customer facing.
Right.
However, do you think that we're always just going to do only what we want to do in life?
Yeah.
Right. Because and I said this at a meeting yesterday with my people. It's like, I know sometimes I romanticize the job, guys, but some of the things that I bring here are because I do want to equip you guys for what happens in your life. right?
Well, when we would sit down with managers and we'd go over the interview process and start talking about interviewing, because I didn't interview, the managers interviewed, hired, fired. I don't get involved in that. But I'd had managers come to me and say, "Hey, can we do a dummy interview, or how would you do an interview?" And I would always say the number one question I ask is, "Hey, what do you think we do here?"
Mm-hmm.
And the person that said make sandwiches more than likely didn't get hired.
Yeah.
But if they said, "Oh, I'm sure you make sandwiches. You probably got to get the food ready. I'm sure you got to clean." That person, I think, they weren't surprised once they started the job.
No.
But the person that said, "Oh, you make sandwiches," yeah,
and that's probably too much of the X's and O's side of it. Probably too. I mean, you and I talk a lot about operations, and it sounds kind of hypocritical of me to say that, but that's probably too much of an operations focus on my end. I don't know. I'm not saying like, and here's the thing. Every store that I go to, the operations wise, the metrics, we're going to knock out of the park. And this is me. And I'm saying I'm not big on operations. I actually have told you many times I hate operations.
And what have I said to you?
That I'm talented at them.
Yeah.
But I just know it's that the people that make the wheel go round and round.
Culture.
Yes.
Out of culture flows everything. Out of culture flows operations. Out of culture flows hitting KPIs. Out of culture flows profits. Out of culture flows increasing AUVs. Out of culture flows sticking to the SOPs.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff flows out of culture. So my responsibility as a franchisee, as the leader of the company, of an organization, and also my managers, their responsibility that can never be delegated. You are responsible for culture, period. You cannot delegate culture to someone else.
And so then how is culture taught?
I think it's caught, not taught. It's having little one-on-one conversations. It's, hey, follow me around. Hey, it's the positive little reinforcements. I told you we used to do back in the day, we'd do the 50-cent piece thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I had a bunch of 50-cent pieces in my pocket. 50 cents is 50 cents. Won't buy you crap, right? But I caught you doing something I like. God, I really like that. Here, throw you a 50-cent piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that was positive. It wasn't about, the 50 cents. It was, well, I got a 50-cent piece from David because I did this. And he saw me greeting a customer really great, or he saw me making a perfect sandwich, or he saw me, my dad did this one time to my kids, and this is where I picked it up. Oldest daughter got, I don't know, she got some money, not a lot of money, maybe $1, $2 or something. And she got let's say $2. I may be wrong, but she got $2. She gave $1 to her sister. My dad saw that. The next day he handed her $100 bill.
Mm.
What, Dad, why are you giving my 5-year-old daughter $100 bill?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I wanted to tell her that I saw her generosity of spirit. But it's kind of the same concept, right?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and this is what makes what's bad about our industry is also what's great about our industry, is that, and this, I'm not taking away from your story. It doesn't take $100.
No,
it doesn't take 50 cents.
Oh no,
So little, especially for the people in the QSR industry, means so much to them.
But it has to be immediate.
It has to be immediate.
It has to be immediate, and it has to be consistent. And I've walked into a store, and one of my big brouhahas, this is uniform code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd walk into a store, and I'm like, God, you look good. You got your full uniform on.
Yep.
That probably goes further than me walking in and saying, Where the heck's your hat?
Yeah, that's probably
Right?
one of the worst things that people could do in terms if you're trying to instill a good culture, is point out the negatives
Right.
right away.
Right.
But again, it's just like it's not freaking hard. It's just like people know what to do. They just don't do what they know. How many books need to be written? How much of the same shit has got to be said just in different ways until people understand it?
to
Like,
me,
don't pick
yeah,
apart your people,
right.
and then they'll probably do way better for you. How about you use use crucial conversations, use the sandwich method, like David's talked about,
Right.
good positive feedback, positive. Like it's just like working out. The basics are the basics for a reason, because they work.
I mean, to me, it's common sense. I mean, the golden rule is common sense. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. It's common sense.
Yeah.
But how many people lack common sense is, that's.
Do they lack it, or do they just ignore it, and because they have so much hubris that they think they have a better way of doing it?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Possibly, arrogance. I don't know. But if I am if part of culture is me, you got a problem, tell me about it. It may not even be work related. I'll see if I can do anything about it. I mean, you and I've had these conversations. I've had these conversations with other managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because people have done that for me, my when we were young, when my wife and I were young, dumb, and poor and broke and all of that stuff, and our car broke down, and it's like, I don't know how I'm going to get my kids to school. I don't know how I'm going to, get to work, that kind of thing. And someone gave me a car. They found out about it, gave me a car. So ever since then, it's like, if I can help someone out with a car, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
If it's, you need to borrow my car for 2 weeks, fine, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Go,
Mm-hmm.
Caught, not taught.
Yeah.
But if someone had told me, "Hey, David, if you see someone whose car, anything," I mean, I'm broadening it outside of work,
So if we had to give the listeners, because David's got to get fishing here, if we had to give the listeners like 3 things to take away, what are those 3 things for? I want to instill a good culture in my store. Do these 3 things.
You are the example. First and foremost, you're the example. Don't follow the parent rule. Do as I say, not as I do. It's, you have to set the culture in your store. You have to be the example. If you're, so that's number 1. 2, consistently and immediately reward positive, any positive action that you see in the store.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how small it is. Man, I'm really proud of how clean that toilet was.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to clean a restroom like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly, 90% of things that come out of your mouth should be positive to your employees. 10% should be correction.
Which then falls in line with 90% attitude, 10% skill.
Right.
Because anything that's
so if you
involving correction is typically skill oriented.
If you are correcting more than you're complimenting, you're not setting up good culture.
Yeah. My 3 would probably be, if I may.
Yeah.
I would say whenever I've gone into a store in either concept, the number 1 thing in terms of instilling a good culture is accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability.
Yeah.
The best ability is accountability. And especially in our industry, where if there's a store that's struggling, it's because the animals are in the zoo.
Right.
People aren't showing up, or people are showing up incredibly late. And then you want to talk about bad culture, that's it right there.
So on accountability, though, and I've seen this happen.
It's got to be consistent.
It's consistent, but
and you can't play favorites.
Yeah. What you do for one, you do for all.
Yep.
Accountability must be blind in terms of, well, I really like this employee, so I'm not going to hold them as accountable for this issue as I made this employee. No, you hold them accountable equally.
And you have to be willing to let them hold you accountable equally.
Yeah.
Perfect example, last night, there was a really obscure item that hardly ever gets ordered. Pintos and cheese. Hardly ever gets ordered. And we have 2 different types of cheese. We've got cheddar and we've got 3 cheese. And I put a pinch of cheddar on it. And then my shift lead, Jared, was like, hey, Hunter, nothing for nothing. But that actually gets 3 cheese.
The formula is wrong.
Yeah. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So that, and then from there, I would say celebrate the small wins.
Yep.
Do a lot of celebrating of the small wins.
Yes.
Especially if you're trying to turn a place around.
Sweatshirts, if it's donuts, if it's a T-shirt, if it's
coming,
if it's an AI generated team photo, celebrate the wins, small wins.
Yeah. And improvement over the goal. Right. So if you come into a store and they were negative 200 hours of labor last period, and then you get them to negative 110 the next period, celebrate it.
That's a win.
That's a win.
That's not a loss. Even though it's still a negative, it's a win.
Even though you're still red, you improve.
Right.
So you celebrate that. And then the other thing that I would probably go from there is I was thinking about this the other day. It's like if you, again, this might be something that would be more caught than taught, but honestly, just trying to be like Jesus.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed how far that gets you.
Yeah.
And so what do I mean by that? If somebody has a problem, listen to them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's coming in, their eyes are welling, go take them into the back room. Take them into the walk-in and talk to them. What's going on? Because I mean, sometimes that person might just want to be heard.
Right. You as a leader must, all caps, have empathy. You must have empathy.
Yeah, and it's really a misnomer. And this is something that I said to my management team yesterday. I said it's like the title is really wrong. We are servants for them.
Oh yeah, servant leader.
Yeah,
I'm writing a book on it.
Mm-hmm. So that would be my thing: is accountability, celebrate the small wins, and at every chance you can be like him, because that's where he was in the marketplace.
Yeah,
right.
The marketplace is your ministry.
Yeah,
there is no divide between secular and ecumenical. There's no divide.
No. So hopefully next week we'll get this whole thing figured out. I might have to go buy a new laptop or a new camera or something, but this cat has got the juice, and we're going to make sure that you guys get it, because we need you to pick up what this guy's laying down.
Yeah, and the thing that's exciting for me about him is that we have kind of the same mindset, the same philosophy about leadership, about culture, about micromanaging, about authority, those kind of things that, it's exciting for me, because as a franchisee,
it makes you feel less dumb.
It makes you feel less dumb, but to be honest, most of the franchisees don't think like I do. So when I run across one that thinks like I do, I get very excited about it.
Oh yeah.
And this guy thinks like us.
Yeah, there was one time, and I'll close with this, is I was talking to a musician, and he said, "Hunter, some of the things that you say make me feel less crazy."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because Hunter can make people feel crazy.
Yeah. So, alrighty. Hopefully that was this impromptu shooting from the hip episode was of value to today. And still some of those things we talked about. And because, hey, the industry is starving for it. We'll talk to you guys next time.
5-star rating.
5-star rating.
Share this around.
Yep. If you like the show, share the show. Talk to you guys later.